Testing. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First things first. My name is Tladi, and so is my surname. I have been requested to draw your attention to the fact that the proceedings for today must get underway, and they must get underway now. I realize that some of the guests are finding their seats. We will give them a few moments to do so. I am not responsible for the proceedings today. I do not feature in the agenda. All the same, I have become a useful instrument to catch the attention of the audience so that the business of the day should get underway. We are going to start and we are going to go through the business of this sitting to get to understand its rules, its protocols, its etiquette in relation to movement, the use of mobile devices, and related requirements. As I indicated, I do not feature in the agenda, and for that reason, I am going to politely excuse myself. I was merely following the directive of the chairperson of the portfolio committee, who is my leader in many ways. As the proceedings start, we will get to go through the program as it has been made available to us. When the portfolio committee starts with the business of the city, it's sitting here today, they will take all of us through the program. We, however, need to acknowledge a few things, one of which being that all of us are hosted here today at our facilities in Centurion. This is one of our critical installations, and it has so been designated as a national key point. We are SITA, the State Information Technology Agency. Our role includes being the hosts here today. Appreciating that, I am going to therefore request the chairperson of the board of directors at SITA to do the official welcoming as well as the acknowledgements. It is not that I do not know that protocol, but it is not for me to do that, lest I render my chairperson irrelevant and redundant. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I would like to invite the chairperson of the board of directors at SITA to officially welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making up for my height. I should have been smarter, and I should have been like the portfolio committee chair to ask like it just to do the rest. But I think I've lost that opportunity. But can I take this opportunity then to say and maybe introduce myself as Makanu Musidi, and I am the chairperson of the State Information Technology Agency. And my job right now is to just welcome you to this beautiful facility of SITA. 3,500 people come here every day to come and try and serve our government, our community, and all our stakeholders. Let me start by welcoming the Portfolio Committee and all the honorable members, with a special welcome to the Portfolio Committee Chair, who's sitting here in front, and I will be handing over to her in a minute. To the Honorable Minister, Minister Malachi, you are welcome to SITA, and thank you for gracing us. To the Deputy Minister, Honorable Mondli Gungubele, welcome, sir. We're looking forward to the engagements. To our Deputy Director General, our Director General, DG Nomkubela Jordan Jani. And I'm also aware that we had invited a number of entities. We had Department of Basic Education. I know that the ministers apologized, and I just want to welcome those who are representing those departments. Department of Basic Education, Department of Home Affairs, Department of National Treasury, and South African Police Services. I don't know if SAPS is well represented here, but I had an apology to say none of them was able to come here. And can I also just acknowledge our acting managing director? I'm trying to look for him in the audience. There he is, AMD Simpiwe, and all EXCO members. I don't know if you're all here, but today we've been honored by one of our highest stakeholders to come and engage with us and to hear firsthand what SITA is about or is not about. And I'm hoping that when we do that, the messages will be as they had wanted or as they had wished to, that it is unfiltered and you are comfortable to say what you have to say, because otherwise the trigger for this meeting and its objective will not be met. So I will be handing over to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. But before I do that, can I ask OHS just to come and orient our guests in terms of how the facilities work? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, leadership. My name is Kabelo Anes Bevu. I'm the head of security for State Information Technology Agency. The facility itself is a declared a national key point, and our access route in auditorium is on your left and another one on your right. And yes, my file, my file left, Minister, and on the other side is on your right. And the place is well managed leadership in terms of our security if assistance is needed. And our evolutions is far on your right and another one on your next to the innovation hub. But our security protocol will be assistant 100%. And in terms of if anything sporadically transpires, we are asking the leadership just to vacate the auditorium in an orderly manner, which we will assist in accordance. Thank you, leadership.
Thank you very much for that briefing, sir. We are taking charge now. You see, we don't even ask to be called. Let me start off by thanking the chairperson of the board for welcoming us to this meeting. Allow me to greet the minister, the deputy minister, the leadership of the department with the director general at the helm. We greet SITA, led by the board, chairperson of the board, the acting MD, all executives present, client departments of SITA. My name is Kusela Digo. I'm the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. I am with the delegation from Parliament, thereby declaring this national key point a parliamentary precinct. We are the Portfolio Committee on Communications, and maybe just to start off, I will introduce the members of the committee that are present. I ask that they stand as we do so, as we may not have interacted with many of you present. First member that I'd like to stand for introduction is Honorable Subrathi. He's a member of the Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. Next to him is Honorable Chauke Adonis. Thank you very much. Next to her is Honorable Tulufelo Bodlani. Next to Honorable Bodlani is Honorable Vilagazi. And next to Honorable Vilagazi, Honorable Sitole. And then finally, Honorable Zwanele Manye. We do have some apologies for this meeting, which we will note for the purposes of record. Minister, we are here at SITA today. Sorry, I'm just a bit disorientated with this setup, and we're hoping that we will get chairs or something at the front for the purposes of discussions. We are here at SITA today as a portfolio committee, I think following a resolution that we took in a meeting that we held on the 4th of December. That was an ordinary meeting of the portfolio committee, and it was considering, amongst other issues, the discussions that we had held with SITA following a report that was presented to us, a forensic report by Cliff Decker-Hofmeyer. We noted in that meeting that SITA had then had an interaction with the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, also dealing with the same matter. However, our discussions as a Portfolio Committee sought to recognize that the problems at SITA do seem to go over and beyond just a matter of a single tender, where irregularities would have occurred or not occurred, depending on which side of the table you are sitting at. We took a decision then as a portfolio committee that we would like to have a closer interaction and engagement with SITA, which engagement would firstly arise out of our constitutional mandate as Parliament, which is, amongst others, to ensure executive oversight on the work of government, to ensure that when we make laws, we make regulations, when we make laws, we do so with an appreciation of the work that you are doing, but also as we engage to ensure that there's space for engagement that is as free and transparent as possible. We also noted your mandate as SITA, that you serve as the IT business of government. We believe that you're a very strategic institution which should be at the forefront of driving digital transformation in this country. Over many years, 30 to be exact, we've been lamenting the issue of the lack of digitization of government services. We've been lamenting the issue of the slow pace of transformation, noting that, amongst others, there's still legacy systems that are being used in government, and there does not seem to be the thought leadership from SITA that we would expect. Now, in our number of interactions and engagements that we've had with SITA, we noted a few challenges around governance, which is the first point on the agenda that we would like to deal with. In particular, around governance, noting leadership instabilities in the institution. Over the last 30 years or so, you've had no less than 20 managing directors, which on average means that at SITA you would have one MD per year and a half. Needless to say, that is not a situation that bodes well for stability of the institution. We have also noted the changes that have recently been made to the Board of Directors following a court order, which reinstated a board that had been previously removed. We would like, in the interactions and engagements with yourselves, to understand exactly what this means for the board. There are reports of divisions within the board, but also there are reports of many boards existing within one board, some boards suspended, you know, and some of these boards that are said to be suspended would have been appointed by cabinet. So we are here to understand those issues. We've also noted, I think, on the issue of governance still, representations that have been made to Parliament by the workers' union that is represented in this organization, being the PSA, where they're making allegations of victimization within the C-suite of the organization, speaking to, in particular, the managing director, and those are some of the issues that we also seek to understand. There are reports of encroachment into executive functions with an interference in operations around the board. And finally, then on the executive, again, the issues of disciplinary cases that have been either outstanding or not dealt with or overturned. Those are some of the reasons why we are here. I must hasten to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that our starting point as the portfolio committee, and I want to reiterate this, this is a critical state institution that cannot be allowed to fail. And as we sit here as members of the portfolio committee, it's really to seek to understand these challenges as they are presented to us, and then to say, how do we work with yourselves, with your clients? How do we work with the Public Service Commission, which would have done a deep dive on some of these issues to support government in the delivery of these issues, of your mandate? Then finally, and I think one of the most important things is around service delivery and performance. The Auditor General presented to us a report that indicates a regression in the performance of SITA. I think the last report spoke about a 57.4% achievement of the targets of SITA. If you go anywhere, system is down has become a normal refrain in society, where government departments, Home Affairs in particular, and the other departments that we have spoken about are unable to deliver their services, and it seems that at the core of those challenges is SITA. Now, when I say that we are here to support you, I am putting these allegations, for lack of a better word, before yourselves in the hope that you will clarify what the challenges are. We don't expect anybody to sweep under the carpet any problems that the organization is experiencing, nor do we expect that anybody is going to be victimized on speaking to this portfolio committee. And I'm raising this because this has already come up in interactions we've been having with SITA. The advisors of our portfolio committee were at pains to request that I must emphasize the rules of the National Assembly under which we gather today, and specifically that the rules of the National Assembly indicate that anyone who wishes to make a representation submission to a meeting of the portfolio committee can do that freely without due influence, and nothing that is said to the portfolio committee may be used against them. Now, saying that, it sounds very alarmist. What is happening? We're being hauled before the coals here, but we are saying it for emphasis. Parliament has got the right to summon anyone to appear before it, and it can't be that in any organization anybody would then be victimized for making such representations before Parliament. So the last item then on our agenda, after we've dealt with the executive issues, is around service delivery, client and stakeholder relations. And in there, we're quite interested in the issue of what we regard as a denial of services to members of the public, where SITA is not able to deliver on its duties, and ultimately it is the public that suffers. The network outages that I've spoken about, issues of cybersecurity breaches, where we seem to be seeing quite a few of them. I've spoken to the legacy systems and issues of modernization, but also, colleagues, honorable members, the issues of supply chain practices within this organization. You control unbelievable budgets in this organization. And time and again, we are bombarded with allegations of fraud, allegations of corruption in the execution of your duties. And all of these are publicly reported widely. And we'd like to understand what are the systematic failures that are leading to such worrisome supply chain practices. So that was really just in the way of opening remarks, setting out, the purpose of this meeting. And to say that, honorable members, colleagues, the issue of digital transformation, it cannot be something that is a by the way, it cannot be even a support service. I think the Deputy Minister, Honorable Gungubele, when we first arrived in this portfolio committee, he was really sought to stress the significant and critical role that IT plays as a critical enabler of economic development, and I dare say even transformation. Now you are at the heart of that as the leadership of SITA. And we believe that the goals that we have to drive economic development, to drive service delivery, at the core of it is SITA being able to deliver on this mandate. We've recently come from oversight visits where we would even question small things like the interoperability of systems across the country. And you find that that is not happening because I don't want to say because, but we think that it is because SITA is not playing its role to ensure that across government there's alignment in terms of norms and standards, in terms of how you use the muscle that has been given to you by legislation to ensure an adherence and delivery on services. So I am going to stop there and then maybe call upon the Minister to say a few remarks before we get into the agenda. Chairperson of the board, I will immediately call you after the Minister to lead the presentation by the board, which is our first item on the agenda. Minister Malatsi.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair, to the Portfolio Committee, the Deputy Minister, the SITA board, and the Director General leading the team from the department and everyone who's here present. I think the purpose of today has been well articulated by the Chair, and the expectation from us in terms of the brief we got from the committee was to provide an overview of where SITA is, and equally so to respond on the updates with regard to the Portfolio Committee meeting outcomes, I think of the 9th of November when we had that meeting with the Portfolio Committee. And I think it's very clear because this is the intention is to have a very frank and open discussion about the state of events here, is that the organization is in a very difficult phase. And the reality is that over the last 6 months and even preceding that, this institution has gone through very difficult chapters, and that is why there's such an element of this interest to try and get to the root of tackling the problems that exist in order to make sure that SITA functions to the level that it's expected to do. And that leads to dealing with the issues that we've met. And I think I'm going to limit our engagements based on developments that happened post the Portfolio Committee meeting, because there have been significant developments that have emerged since then in order to appraise the Portfolio Committee of the engagements that we have had. But generally, the sense that we've gotten, even from sister departments, the overwhelming majority of cabinet members, is an overwhelming sense of frustration about the service delivery capabilities of SITA to meet the demands of the clients. And this has resulted in several approaches being made to the Ministry for exemptions to procure outside of SITA. The South African Police Service has done that, the Ministry of Human Settlements have done that, and others like Home Affairs have equally expressed that given the level of frustrations that they have experienced, they're exploring and even persuading for considerations to explore and procure outside of the SITA processes. The other obvious thing is around the governance issues. And I think the instabilities that have happened with changes of leadership and integration of leadership and the combination of the board as was by mid to end August and the reinstatement of the board has quite honestly created an environment of distrust amongst the board leadership at SITA. And that has manifested even in the level of professional engagement and the deterioration of professional engagement within the leadership structures. And over and above that has been the clear high turnover among senior management levels. That obviously also predates the sixth administration. But for any organization to function optimally and smoothly, all these developments hamstring its ability to do so. And I think the other key point is the general concern around interference in operational and procurement processes of the organization. And that is an issue that all of these things we assist with in engagement with the leadership of the entity. But most importantly is, since the developments and the meeting of the portfolio committee, we have received from the ministry correspondence from the board expressing that they wanted to initiate disciplinary not precautionary suspension, not disciplinary processes, to be exact, based on several things, but largely due to the pronouncements that were made at the portfolio committee meeting and also concerns around the irregularity of the appointment of the AMD. And we have had dual responses and interaction with the committee where we've asked for much more detailed, substantive reasons in order for us as the ministry to be able to assess the magnitude of the reasons that were provided to us in order to be satisfied that once the rules of natural justice will be abided to and that the process in itself will be fair, and lastly that it is one that is done with the best interest of SITA at heart. That engagement has resulted in 3 correspondence from the board, and the board is of the strong view that in order to let the operations of the entity be smooth, in order to deal with the irregularity around the appointment and the concerns around the going out of the normal SITA processes for recruitment purposes, that they've got grounds to initiate precautionary suspension of the AMD, right? And we have, you know, the last correspondence we received, I think, was from a few days ago from the board articulating that. But I think for us, there are 2 key things with regards to any of that. The tenures of the board and the tenures of the AMD are up for expiration within a couple of weeks. And the most important thing for us is, regardless of time, where there is legitimate grounds for interventions to be initiated, those have to be initiated on their merits or on their substance. For us as the executives, to make sure that things are done, processed, that there is fairness, that it's grounded on strong legal grounds, and that the legitimate processes are advanced to us, and we satisfy ourselves with that, because any action against the apex leadership of any organization is a major development that must be handled with that due care. With regards to the committee's requirement on updates on the SIU report and also the public protector report, our understanding that is met from in there is that we are aware that there were 22 matters that were referred to SITA for non-disclosure of business interest, and that the leadership of SITA is following that. Our role is to make sure that whatever those recommendations are, they can be implemented and followed through. There were also letters of demand which were issued by the SIU for long outstanding monies to SITA, so that those monies can be recovered, and that there are 4 criminal references and 1 asset forfeiture instance that was done by the NPA. Our role as the ministry and the department is to follow the implementation of those recommendations and that they are implemented. With regards to the public protector's investigation, we recently received correspondence from the public protector that they've initiated an investigation on the basis of a complaint that was laid by a whistleblower, and their investigation is centered around 4 key issues. One is allegations on the irregular appointment of the interim board, the alleged irregular appointment of the ministerial task team, the appointment of the MD and the procurement officer, and also the appointment of the company secretary. This is what the investigation of the public protector is seized with, and the department has been cooperating through the submission of documents that have been sought from our end. And from our end, in addressing all of this, is that it's very clear that there is a breakdown of relations at board level, and also breakdown of relations between the board and the AMD. And that obviously trickles down into the nature of relations that happens between the board, the AMD, and the senior management of the organization. And we are of the strong view where we are, that as part of our role as the minister and the department to do oversight, we need to do an in-depth look in terms of the governance issues that are taking place at SITA in order to steer the organization on the right side of governance issues. And to that end, we're engaging with the Public Service Commission to assist us to that level, because the reality of the matter is the level of contestation, even about the most basic operational functioning of the organization, shows to us that there is a need for a much more independent assessment that can help go to the root of the problems that persist here, and that those are tackled and done fairly with. Because this institution, over and beyond the personalities that are in here, that are linked to particular period, this institution plays a fundamental role in the digital transformation agenda of the country. And it's very important that we cleanse it of these worrying trends that have developed over time, some of which are deep-rooted. And that pursuit to the Public Service Commission is to help us with that and make the recommendations that would make to us in terms of what interventions are then necessary to do so, because we think it's a very key intervention in the restoration of the functionality of the organization, and also to make sure that there is smooth operation. I think people don't have to like each other in order to work together, but when that gets in the way of the functioning of the organization, it means that the organization is unable to perform to the level that it should be. So that is where we are in terms of the state of the organization from our end, and we welcome this intervention also by the committee to do the oversight, because it is important for the committee to also satisfy itself that what its oversight role seeks to achieve in holding us and the board accountable, that it is done so in an open manner, that there is no sugarcoating of the state of the organization is, and even the state of relations between the ministry, the department, and the portfolio is, and that hopefully all these interventions together can get us to getting solutions that can steer these organizations to focus on the right things and not be distracted by the developments that are happening around personalities and some of the dysfunction that has crippled it. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Can I now invite the chairperson of the board to, I think, make the initial presentation? We're really looking at, seeking to understand some of these issues that I had alluded to in the opening address. If you're also in a position to touch on strategy, Chair, or at least in terms of where you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity just to take you through the governance of SITA and perhaps some of the issues. And I think the Minister made it easy for me, because some of the things that I was going to cover, he has already covered. Maybe let me open. I'm hoping that the few slides that I have will be projected there when they are ready. But my focus really has been on governance, because that is what the board does. And I will share and present to you simply just how we are governing SITA and what happened. But I'll also touch on the court process that the minister spoke to, because I think when I think about it and I try to reflect, I think that whole transition, it has been quite challenging in many ways. Much as we had wanted it to be as simple as it should be, I think it has its own problems, like the minister has said. So when you look at SITA, I said earlier on, we have about 3,500 employees. And because of the size of the organization, when we were reinstated in September, we looked at how we can then reinforce and make sure that we cover all areas and have an adequate oversight in terms of the challenges that we were seeing. And I'll take you through that quite, you can go to the next slide in terms of just summarization of the subcommittees that we have. So what we have is, these are all the committees. So yes, we have a shareholder in DCDD, which is quite known. And then we have board of directors, and we see ourselves as accountable for the running of the company. But we do that through the committees that we have and the executive committee that we have, which is here today. The first one is the social and ethics. And honorable members, I have, and I apologize for the color because I didn't realize it was going to come out like that. But I do have committee chairs who are here. And I would like them to, as I speak, to present maybe shortly what their focus areas are, time allowing, and not to be too elaborate, but more to create an understanding of what that committee does. So the first one is the social and ethics, and we do have Director Pillay, who's actually chairing that. You will see that it's really just to monitor SITA's overall ethical culture, and perhaps that is what is at stake today. The ethical culture of this organization, because companies rise and fall on governance. We break it, we fall as a company, and I think that's where we are currently. The audit committee, and I'll explain, because it used to be audit and risk, and I'll explain the split that we made when we came on board in September. It was really driven by the business requirements and where SITA was as a company. And we have the risk committee, which is now a standalone as well. And when you look at a whole lot of things, for us to rebuild and to make sure that there are controls, we deemed it fit that risk should actually have a focus on its own, so that the controls can be reinforced and be monitored until they are at a level that is quite acceptable. And then we have the ones that we had, which is HR and REM, and ICT and research, which is almost the core business of SITA, if you think about it, besides talking about procurement. And the other new one which we have, which is chaired by Director Hill, is called Client and Stakeholder Committee. This was purely to create focus from the highest level of the organization, to create focus on our clients, because there were issues that were coming through, just like the chairperson mentioned here. And we are quite cited in terms of those problems, not all of them. Every day you hear something new. So there are problems, and that particular committee we created so that we can engage and also be closer to the problems. And you have now the board procurement committee, which is what it is, just to facilitate procurement, which is more than 50 million. And you have the Directors Affairs Committee, which really is the committee of chairs, where we can align the committees of the board. So what I did, I tried to also just say, whilst that is the whole governance, At the moment, we're not operating optimally, not because we don't have enough coverage, but because in terms of the Act, some of the positions that we're supposed to have are not actually filled. So the first one that we have is the National Treasury Representative. And I know that the Minister did say that he has been awaiting a response from the department to actually allocate the person who's going to represent National Treasury in SITA. It is a critical representation because of the role that National Treasury plays. We have also exceeded statutory limits and have been granted an extension for annual report. And all these are just little signs or big signs to show that there's a problem at a level, because if you are an institution that is running effectively, you should be able to meet the deadlines, submit annual reports, and do it the way we should. And then we have the AGM scheduled for the 24th of January. Yes, we have been given approval to do that. We will be meeting as a board to approve the APPs and the corporate plans. And for the year ending April 2024, we have had a disclaimed audit report. And I think when you see and when you receive a disclaimed audit report, you can imagine just the sense of, oh, are we still a going concern or not? And that is actually something that one of the directors, Director Peterson, is actually dealing with in terms of the recovery audit plan. And we are currently reviewing MOI. The MOI has gone through a lot of changes. When you look for a copy or the latest, some of it is written by hand and so on and so on. So I think there is just a need to revise and make sure that we get an MOI that everyone understands and is actually fit for purpose for what we're doing. And then of course, there is the status of the board member's case against the minister, which the minister spoke about. I don't know if it's okay, but I will quickly take you through the court case and the outcome of the court case and where we are, because it's not concluded. So I will run through the next slides just to explain, so that sometimes people ask, but what are you still doing? There's a process that is undergo, and unless we accelerate the process, we won't be able to get to the end. So the first one, so what was the case about really? The case was, it was divided into two. I think the first part was the interim relief application, which we called Part A. And this is what has been concluded. And this particular section here, and I just gave the detail, I won't go through them. The Part A, which has been concluded, it reinstated the board, and it was very clear in terms of what it should be, reinstatement of that board. And that is what we have done. But it's not the end, it is a relief, which means there must be a proper review of now the whole charge that the minister was actually having. So that process alone, the Part A, it really followed a number of appeals from the High Court to the Supreme Court of Appeal. And in that process, and perhaps this is the other source of conflict, I think, because especially when we were doing, I think that the first appeal or the second appeal, the interim board joined the minister in the case. So it means it was the interim board and us, and they joined in the case, which was also dismissed at the end. So they were part of that, and then we continued then to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and they also individually applied. I think in the first one they supported the application. In the first one they supported the application. In the second one they were actually alone as a board, but also supporting the minister's application. And I think maybe that is where the first division happened. And I'm only getting close to that now as we work together, because I didn't realize that it could be. If you can, and the final, I think just to summarize in terms of the status today. So both appeals in the High Court and the Supreme Court were aligned to the first judgment by Judge Yende to reinstate and provide relief. It's not like the case has actually been heard. It was really just to provide relief. And it spoke clearly about reinstatement. And that is why I think the minister reinstated. The second part, on the day that judgment was delivered, that's when then the new minister was appointed. Now it's another challenge because you have to really bring the minister up to speed. And then we engaged in the discussions to settle Part B of the application because the new minister then said, look, we really need to protect SITA and we need to go ahead with the business of the day. We cannot continue. He didn't have appetite to continue with Part B of the application because what it would have meant that we start from the beginning, putting documentation together, putting evidence together, going to court, applying and so on. It would take us 3 years to get to where we needed to get to. So we also welcomed that offer to say, you know what, let's do away with Part B application so that we can focus on the work. And on the 15th of October, I think we provided the settlement agreement because to close Part B, it meant that we had to go again to court to close the loop. So you do the settlement agreement, you apply to the court says yes, the two parties have agreed, therefore we can actually drop Part B of the case. So this is where we are. We haven't finalized that. I think the minister is still applying his mind in terms of the settlement agreement, which we would like to do, especially because our term is ending in January. Failure to do that, Chair, it will mean that we are still there. And I do not think that it will be healthy for the organization that we're still there so that we do Part B, because it means we cannot just stay stagnant, but also we cannot go further to do Part B because I think we have agreed to the minister. So we just want, if this gets concluded, then the whole code process is concluded. Now, where is the challenge? The challenge is that then in this one board, and I don't know if I have another slide, which I think this was one of the last. Oh, okay. So I just thought I would reflect on the different board members. The names don't matter, but it's just to show that at some point others resigned, at some point others are carried over. So the whole board is a hybrid of people with different views, and to say, is this person actually rightfully here to do the right thing, or can we trust them, or can we actually work with them? So it has been a hybrid of people going from the July interim board to the September board, which is the one that I'm leading currently, and that's where we are. So we have, you'll see some common names on both sides, and some you don't see the common names at all. It goes back to last year. I think it was quite hectic. I think the dates are quite clear there, and you can just look at them. This is such a bad slide. Sorry. This is now because I was trying to focus on governance so that you understand how we work. So this is now the executive committee. So that's the board, and just to highlight it. No, you can just change the font and make it light, if you can. Just change. No, we can just change the fonts and make them lighter. So because the background is navy blue, even the contrast. Okay. So this slide, and I'll be slow until they get it right. This slide reflects the governance structure before we came in. So you will see that it has, this is not good. It has audit and risk still. You'll see that it doesn't have client focus. You'll see that risk is still not separate. And so that was the first. So I wanted to just reflect that. And then we changed, and we then did the current one. Yeah. So those are the ones that we have had, and then this is the executive committee. So For the procurement, we have this e-back, and maybe we can, Chair, that's where procurement is discussed right from the bottom to the board. So you'll see that it has a dotted line to the board procurement committee. So depending on the threshold or the quantum of the tender, some of them, most of them are actually awarded here because most of them are quite less than 50 million, but then the minute it exceeds, it then goes to the BPC and so on in terms of the DOA. And these are some of the executive committees that EXCO has. I'm not quite competent on that, but I think the AMD will be able to take you through that. If you can take then the next one. And it's the same thing, yes. So this is now the reconfigured committees, which all the time when we're doing them, because I think speed was of the essence without breaking governance, but making sure that we have the right focus. So we would just appraise the department and so on. And I think in terms of the newly constituted subcommittees, I think the last thing really is to ensure that we have the necessary concurrence. Although when I was looking at the MOI, I wasn't sure whether it is there or not. The company secretary, who's not here today, I think couldn't create clarity in terms of what it is. But we have been updating the minister and making sure that he understands why we reconfigure this. We even had our first management board meeting with the department where most of the chairpersons spoke to the committees as we created them. And the rest, I think they still are the way they are. I think, like I say, the AMD will talk to that a lot better. If you can go to the last slide, I think, from my side. Oh, okay. So I was trying to break up the subcommittees. And Chair, if it is still permissible, I think the chairpersons of the committees can just say a few words just to explain what they are focusing on, so that you understand the coverage that we have in terms of the organization. This is okay, this is just for the board, which I chair, and it does whatever it does. The next one, just quickly. And then this is the Directors' Affairs Committee. Quite frankly, ever since we started, we've never said I chair it. It's for ad hoc, like when you have a unique assignment that you want to do. Supposing you want to recruit the AMD, the MD, or perhaps you want to do some work that is not actually pertaining to any subcommittee. So it's an agnostic kind of a committee that we will do. And when the minister was talking about the precautionary suspension of the MD, we had resolved that it will actually be discussed here when it starts. So this is, but we haven't started, we haven't said. The next one. Now on these two, I do have the Board Procurement Committee, which is chaired by Matotsi Rachimbilani. I don't think Matotsi is here. I didn't see him. But Chair, this is where now, if there's a big tender like the one of the Western Cape, it would have then gone through this particular committee. This is where they will interrogate it a lot more. This is where they will look at, have you followed things, and they will send it back if they have to, until it then, depending on the quantum, it will then be recommended to the board. The next one is Director Ketekile, which is the HR and REM committee. It's a very critical committee, but I can say right now that we do battle when it comes to human capital. SITA is an IT organization, and skills shortage is just a problem. And to retain the good people, I think we're not winning. That is why I think earlier speakers spoke about how we really chain people. So I don't know if it's just so that the committee members see you. I wonder if you want to say something and voice over for a minute in terms of what your focus areas are currently, what you're dealing with, and maybe you can even touch on the suspensions, because I think it's those to talk about, if you can. And I think,
All
right, thank you, Chair. My name is Olwetu, surname is Ketsekile. I would like to greet everybody. All protocol observed, Minister, Chairperson, Deputy Minister, DG, the members of Parliament, and all citizens. One of the key issues in terms of SITA and how we found it as of September was that we noticed that in terms of governance, it was lacking from an HR point of view. From the time we engaged, we had about 8 grievances come into the HR and REMCO chair in terms of the emails. And all of these grievances pertaining to AMD, some things not resolved in time, some were suspensions. One of the most critical area was that of the CDH report and the consequences of the CDH report. 2 executives were identified in the CDH report. They had been suspended from, I think, November 2023 up to date. Now we looked at the MOI as well as the governance in terms of what it entails. So governance is very clear in terms of you need to make sure that you complete suspensions and conclude disciplinary hearings within 60 days. Under LRA, you have about 90 days in terms of concluding suspensions and uplifting. What was happening at SITA is that these people were then suspended indefinitely. Charges were then taken out, recharged, updated, and then gone back. Now, in terms of LRA, you have the prerogative as the employee, as the employer, to make sure that whether the person is there or not, you can continue a hearing without them. So you don't need to wait for the employee to make excuses if they don't come. And these are some of the things that we were given as a board when we asked questions. It resulted into wasteful expenditure, and it had gone outside, which is at the CCMA. So when we, as the board, when we engaged, we looked at the procedural fairness, the substantive fairness of these cases from the CDH report. We asked the connection to the CDH report, the evidence, why was there no disciplinary actions for at least 8 months. And as it stands off now, we have 1 arbitration award from one of the executives, and the arbitration award is against SITA. It says that substantively, procedurally, we have acted unfair. And that's why when we got the report as the board, we looked at that and we uplifted the suspensions of the 2 executives. In doing so, we saved SITA some money because the CCMA then gave an award to say that these people were unfairly suspended. There is no procedure to it. There's no substantive fairness to it, and that we need to pay them. Mind you, in terms of wasteful expenditure, you have 1 CPO, acting CPO. When we looked at the MOI in terms of how they were employed, there was no interviews were wanting, vetting was not there, assessments were not there. So it looked like you had taken somebody from outside and you've plugged them in. And the contract was just given and had no ending. In terms of the contract, it says that you can come and replace, but we don't know the end date. These are some of the things that we questioned as the board in terms of the process. What then happened is you were having 2 CPOs, 1 acting CPO and 1 person that was actually employed in the CPO and was sitting at home for 8 months. You were having 2 salaries going to 2 different people at the time. And that's the reason why the board uplifted. And it is validated by the CCMA. And that's the conclusion as it is. It says that the 2 executives were unfairly suspended. There is no procedure to it. There's no connection to them and the CDH report because the CDH report went into details of people that were involved or implicated. And none of the people that were there were actually linked to the company. So in terms of fraud activities, dishonesty, nobody benefited from it. because it went as far as looking at people's accounts and doing audit. So that's how it stands, in the sense that we uplifted those people and we're justified in uplifting in terms of procedure. And then with regards to the SCM portfolio, there's an HOD in there. 2 months after his executive was removed, he was also removed. There's no charges. We asked. All we got was that there's a report that the person has actually gone and sat at home, and we're looking into it. 9 months. We have a person sitting at home. Then there was another junior SCM. The other junior SCM raised an issue towards the acting CPO, who then plugged in at SITA. And that junior SCM person was then victimized, reported, was ignored. We got a report from the AMD saying that the person actually misconducted themselves. As we sit, as of yesterday, the person had gone outside because SITA could not give them the platform to lay out their grievances. So they'd gone outside, it went to arbitration. We have an arbitration award, unfair labor practices from SITA, once again. And these are some of the suspensions, as the board we had said we needed to rectify if there was incorrect issues. So those are some of the challenges that we're dealing with at SITA. Not only that, we have issues from an HR point of view where, in terms of renewing executives, is not discussed. We just get a report to say somehow wherever the person was never renewed. There seems to be process issues, and the amount of litigation in terms of the legalities that we're paying, we're almost spending 10 million as it stands, just from an HR point of view. And some of the questions that we ask as a board is, why can't we have a process within SITA that's going to make sure that you equip management to be able to discipline their own people, therefore limiting the amount of going outside and getting legal people to come and intervene. And you end up not having, you pay for the services, like the 2 executives, you pay the services, but actually the ER manager was there at arbitration. So what were you paying for? These are the questions that we ask ourselves as the board as we got in. There has been, petitions come through to the HR and REMCO. We have tried to bring it back to the AMD, but there seems to be no trust in terms of being able to resolve these issues, hence it's seated at our level, which for a board that does not work permanently or on a daily basis, it becomes a tedious experience because we have to work overnight, and yet there is management. Then there's issues such as, people come and whistleblow and say, you know what, acting CPO is not qualified. Why is he here? And when you look at the MOI, it doesn't allow. How was this person entered into? There's these issues. Those are some of the things that we're sitting with at the HR and REMCO that we try to rectify to make sure that we have a balanced SITA. And one of the things that we've done is to talk and debate with HCM and executives to say that we need to go back to basics, whereby we empower management, have seamless processes that talk to each other, that are going to be consistently applied without being unfair to anybody or any employee. And where there's deviation, there needs to be clarity in terms of how do we deviate, who signs off the deviation, where does it go to make sure that we can look at a case and say there is prosperity to succeed here, so that we are all aligned. The other thing is that at HCM level is to digitalize HCM, have an app that at a board you can look at a dashboard and across the country to be able to know that in the Eastern Cape, there's this process that's being followed. And those are some of the things that we have embarked on in terms of just trying to turn around. And one of the things that we noticed was that, I'm sorry, Chair, I'm taking time, but one of the things that we noticed was that in terms of how people were feeling at SITA, it was either they're sitting here and they're redundant. They're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're qualified people, but they feel defeated. And some of the things when we engage with people was to say, let's go into engagement and find out from relevant stakeholders internally, which is engaging with the unions that are within SITA, and we've done that, to have a meet and greet with the unions and actually find out what are the issues, what are the people on the ground saying to us as the board. Let us, incorporate what you're saying and factor it into a strategy so that we can all work together and people can own it. And we've had engagements and we got a list that we as HCM committee actually got that list. We were aligned with the unions in terms of what needs to happen. And one of the key deliverables in terms of what we need to do as HCM is to have an EVP, which is an employee value proposition that talks to SITA, that talks to retaining talent, that talks to attracting talent to want to work for government, and having a seamless and a controlled environment. So those are some of the things that we wanted to embark on, and we're on that journey, which is with HCM in terms of having an EVP that will probably be implemented over the next 3 years, whether we are here or not, but we leave SITA making sure that the people are happy and that they are able to bring themselves to work and are enthusiastic in terms of coming to work. And if there's compliance issues, they can red flag that. If there's people that are messing with their own company, they're able to go to platforms and engage and say, listen, I'm whistleblowing. And that's where we are at in terms of HCM and what we've embarked on in the past 2 months. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Olwetu. I think, Chair, that really required that length of time because people issues are always critical things. And I'm sure we can do question and answer after, but can I quickly then ask Director Peterson just to speak to the audit committee and the focus areas, because like I mentioned earlier, we have a disclaimed report which is a concern to all of us in terms of how she's going to help us to turn it around. So Director Peterson, if I can. And Chair, you will guide me if maybe there are questions to be taken.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, Portfolio Committee Chair, honorable members, colleagues, all protocols observed. I understand that the Chair is limiting me only to the audit, but Audit Committee is quite broader than that, but the audit is part of it. I'm the longest serving SITA board board member without a break. I was appointed on the 1st of February 2022, together with the board that was reinstated. And one can ask then, how did I not exit when they had their short stint of an exit? Simply because of 2 things. Number 1, there was an issue of a salary of an MD. I raised my concerns in the meeting regarding that. Secondly, I was not part of this 1.2 billion tender. That is how I escaped the X. I am giving that background so that the members can appreciate that I never had a break at SITA. So I understand what happened during the period of the board that was reinstated, during the period of the new board, and now the reinstated board. I'll just start high level with the role of the audit committee. As the chair has explained, the audit committee, it is audit related issues, risk management, and also compliance. And it has been like that for the longest of time until the past 2 months or so.